Why, hello there. I'm Tim, welcome to Watchbox, and thanks for logging on. This evening, a review of the Omega Silver Snoopy 2. We're talking about the release. I'm going to review the product, give you some of my hot takes. We're going to talk market analysis, because inevitably that's where some of this is going to lead. And then I'm going to recommend Omega alternatives, because let's face it, these are going to be scarce and dear, and I want you to know that there are great options available. Remember, join me on Facebook. It is the after party to the show. I have my new Talking Time with Tim Mosso Facebook group, 1,700 strong and counting. We're looking to make that 2,000 by the end of the month. Guys, join me. We can post photos, videos, everything we could never do in the discussion threads below these videos. Also, the people who pay for these pixels, it's where I am right now, thewatchbox.com, with an all-new website, faster, easier to navigate, and with the same great inventory, over 3,000 pre-owned and vintage watches up this instant. Check out thewatchbox.com. Okay, your watch is on my box. Let's take a look at viewer wrist chats, and we're starting with Dylan L. Dylan, what you got? As you can see, we have one hell of a match right there. Competing brands? Just a bit. Nicely done. A double wrist shot in our first of the night, because we always give you more. Mr. Enigma stays on the ball with the Zinn 6000 Financial District chronograph. Looking good. Sentimental favorite, I'll add. Phil H. of Germany, the home of Zinn, shares his Omega Seamaster 1948 sword hand and his Diver 300-meter iridescent blue dial. A lovely pair. Mikhail B. of Poland takes his Breitling Aerospace Evo on a pilgrimage to Glasuta and Alongo Unzona. Guys, send your wrist shots to mondaymailbag at thewatchbox.com to see your analog on my digital. Jumping into the box right here, we've got Edward Ledden of Sweden, Blue Shirt Boot, a watch enthusiast. We've got Sean B. joining in from Temple, Texas. Marco B. joining in from Harrogate, UK, asking what I think about the new Snoopy. I'm glad you asked. We will discuss. We have Alan L., Adam Crossfire, Marcus G., and Dante joining in the box. Rick Remaker from Chicago, watch enthusiast, M. Peters, Enrique C., Dave Opencard. Dave, you're in the show tonight. We also have Dave C., Dave and Jen in the UK. Jen, I think you're on the show tonight too. Matthew G., we've got Andre G. watching live. We've got PT, Israel McKenzie, and Get Out of the John, Lloyd Kerr, Turkischer Meister from Turkey, Randy Allen, Steve Berg, and Mosso. Welcome all. John Sai, I see you in the box right there. Let's talk about the obvious. Everyone is discussing Omega today, and with good reason, though there have been other interesting releases in the last week, including a particularly delectable 5-piece supersonnery from AP. This is the only watch that matters today, and Omega has launched the Silver Snoopy 50th anniversary. Building on the excitement from 2015's Silver Snoopy 2, which was a sort of sleeper hit that even Omega didn't see coming, this is a watch that the world will know as the Silver Snoopy 3. What do we have to say about the Silver Snoopy 3? Well, if you've been living under a rock for the last 12 hours or so, let's talk about what makes this watch distinct, including from the previous versions. Without getting wound around the axle, talking about Apollo 13 and the significance of Snoopy to NASA, I think this is going to be the collector's take. Let's stick to the hardware, and then we'll talk about all that other stuff, like buying, selling, and alternatives. So the new Snoopy is going to retail for $9,600 US. The Just the Facts take is that that's actually a little bit less than the Dark Side of the Moon Apollo 8 from 2018. So it's right in the range where Omega has priced its recent limited and special edition Speedmasters. You're also going to find that the Apollo 11 from last year was similarly priced, but we'll talk about that in time. Now, highlights of the new design, if we could go back to the Silver Snoopy 3, but highlights of the new design are going to be a white dial. This time it's true silver white, not chalk white like the last model. This is a sterling silver 925 dial that has been laser cut to create the image of Snoopy at 9 o'clock. Blue has been added because 2020. And of course, you have the image of Snoopy on a white dial with blue applique indices, trying to revisit all of the best parts of the 2015 watch without aping it exactly. Now, I'll also mention that there's a trick reverse side that we're going to see in just a moment. But the highlight on the front is that the dial is now made of sterling silver and the accents are blue. It's a blue panda, if you will. Mechanically, the watch is of more interest than its two predecessors. It's a 42mm steel watch. So in stainless steel 42mm, this is the Moonwatch case. If you were expecting a Snoopy Ed White, you're going to have to keep waiting, but we'll talk about the Ed White in a moment. The timepiece, of course, is of more interest horologically than its two predecessors. The 2003 model was a basic Moonwatch caliber 1861, and the 2015 Silver Snoopy, again, was a solid caseback and the Moonwatch caliber 1861. But the new Silver Snoopy takes the caliber 3861 from last year's Apollo 11 Special Edition, and you're getting an upgraded movement, and it contains a lot of significant technical upgrades over the Moonwatch caliber. It's still based on the Lamagna 1873 Bausch, so the base Lamagna is still there, but you've never seen it like this. 50 hours of power reserve rather than the standard manual wind 48 in the Moonwatch. There's a coaxial escapement, there's a free sprung balance, there's a silicon hairspring, there is a master chronometer certification, so it is both coaxial and a chronometer. It's effectively amagnetic with the silicon hairspring, and this Omega goes one step further. It doesn't have a display caseback, but it has something fascinating, the likes of which I didn't expect from the Omega folks. So there's a driven caseback, and the best way to describe this is just to go to a photo. You can see Snoopy in the Moon module. You can see the globe. What you can't see here is that there's three-dimensional depth to this caseback. The Moon is a metallized deposit on the inside of a sapphire caseback. Slightly behind those, you have a full rotating capsule that actually pivots on the same axis as the chronograph seconds hand, so the little capsule will periodically duck out from behind the Moon and then eclipse itself behind the Moon as long as the chronograph's running. The Earth pivots on its axis, and the globe is driven by the constant seconds on the dial side. So the caseback is always moving. This is a unique take on the caseback, and frankly, I think it's more engaging, animated, and more fun than simply putting a sapphire over the caliber 3861. My hot take is that this is a pleasant watch, but that it took no risks. The caseback is inventive, and I'll admit that, but for the most part, we don't wear the watches upside down. On the dial side, it's difficult to say no to the color blue in the year 2020, which is exactly why Omega used this. Now, it's not a complete cliche. I don't see an integrated bracelet. I don't see a bronze case. But if you were to take elements that are proven to perform on the market and then package them together in something that's still visibly reminiscent of the 2015 watch, you would get this. Which is to say, inoffensive, fun, but I'm not sure I want to be the guy paying $25,000 to buy that used on Chrono in a few days. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Clearly, Omega reprised the most popular features of the 2015 Snoopy and then added the merry-go-round caseback. And while I like both elements individually, the second Snoopy was night and day different from the first Snoopy, a watch that was unremarkable in most regards. I had hoped, knowing that this Snoopy 3 was coming, that we would see a watch as ambitious and risky as the Apollo 8, with as big a step past the previous Snoopy as the 2 was over the 1. And frankly, that's not what we got. So while the new watch is nice, I'm not in love with it. I'm not head over heels. And that's sort of how I felt about the 2020 Rolex Submariner. Good, new, fresh in its way, but not all new, not innovative. Now let's consider about how, frankly, you guys are always the highlight of the show. And when I need a change of pace, I go to your wrist shots. Let's talk about yours on mine right here. Quentin G of France and his stunning Grand Seiko 9F champagne dial light up the screen. Anthony R celebrates the birth of his son with his Rolex Explorer 2 Polar. Congratulations, Anthony. Till G from the UK shares his Rolex Cosmograph Daytona on a long path ahead. Scott L impresses with his freshly serviced Chronoswiss Delphis Jump Hour Retrograde Minute Regulator. Those were really cool, and the dial on those, sterling silver. Sound familiar? Guys, send your wrist shots to mondaymailbag@thewatchbox.com because I want to see your watches on this screen. I can't promise you the silver screen or the big screen, but I can promise you your screen. Let's take a quick look. We've got Andres G joining in from Guatemala, Mark S from Brooklyn, Joe Tyson from Apex, North Carolina, Love Watches USA, Steve Berg, Matt S, joining in from the Cayman Islands. Welcome, guys. And we got Eric Salzer joining in from Bourbon Land. I take that to mean he is down in the great state of Kentucky, USA. Let me see if I can see what else you guys are posting. This new chat box is difficult to navigate. All right, here we have Marcus G joining in the box with the Watch Lounge, and Miguel S.J. joining from Albuquerque, New Mexico. All right, guys. So let's talk about alternatives, and let's start with an assessment of the Silver Snoopy series up to this point, because I don't think you can talk about the Snoopy 3 without doing a quick flashback to the Snoopy 1 and 2. And because this will make a lovely triptych collection theme for many folks, guys who are getting the Snoopy 3 might suddenly feel an inclination to invest in a Snoopy 2 and a Snoopy 1. Those who have the first two can scarcely be expected to miss the third. So let's talk about the first one. 2003 witnessed the first of these Apollo 13 Snoopy anniversary watches. 2003 wasn't any particular anniversary of Apollo 13, but Omega was trying out a new concept in its endless sequence of limited edition Speedmasters, and as those go, this one wasn't bad. The dial, as has become tradition, features Snoopy at 9 o'clock, and the case back featured a lovely lacquered Snoopy, and it is the Charles Schulz Snoopy image that the American cartoonist had originally drawn for NASA as the emblem of their excellence award that they give out to suppliers who excel. So you can see why Omega wanted to put it blazing on the case back. But I have to say, today these trade between $11,000 and $13,000, which is way more than they were trading at just 4 or 5 years ago. But still, this price escalation, interest in this fairly milquetoast special edition, grew immensely due to the success of the 2015 Snoopy and its meteoric rise on collector markets. This watch was different in every way. Starting with the color palette, black and white like a newspaper comic strip, this is what I call a fully realized concept. Fully loomed dial, loomed Snoopy, loomed tachymeter, loomed crown insert. You have blocks of Luminova with black caps on the dial. You have 14 comic cells from 12 o'clock to just before 3 o'clock, representing the 14 seconds that retro rockets were fired, timed by an Omega Speedmaster as part of the maneuvers to recover the damaged Apollo 13 craft. You also have a phrase that Snoopy is thought bubbling over the cannon pinion: "Failure is not an option," which was actually a line from the movie Apollo 13. But it got better, as this watch featured an extraordinary caseback. The engraved sterling silver Snoopy on the reverse was a work of art, and a true work of art, as every single one of those was freehand engraved with a burin, meaning no two of them are exactly alike, nor is any caseback identical to another, as each caseback was vitreous enamel with twinkling minerals mixed in to simulate a cosmos base behind Snoopy. This was a big creative and artistic upgrade over the original Snoopy Moonwatch. Dimensionally and mechanically not exceptional. It's still a Moonwatch caliber inside and a 42mm Speedmaster Professional steel case. But still, this was a special watch. Even at the time, this was marked as a future collectible. This watch included a chalk white dial that absolutely exploded in the night, fully loomed, and you've got to see it loomed because it is unmistakable. You know, lights out, which watch this is, and that is rare. A few iconic dials, and this is amongst them, stand out as instantly identifiable even when the lights are off. And I'm talking Rolex Submariner, Panerai Luminor, and this is right up there. Unlike those others, this is also limited. I would also say that there is a price to success. And that price is stupid money, and these trade for stupid money on Chrono 24 and in pre-owned. We've got one. We're asking a lot of money for it. If you've got to have the ultimate Snoopy watch, that's it right there. But I'm going to be honest. Remember, when this watch was new in 2015, it cost $7,350. So that has been one hell of an escalation. We're going to talk about market prospects in a moment. But first, remember that a lot of the escalation in the price of this one has happened just in the last 2 or 3 years. As back in 2017, a full boxed set Silver Snoopy 2 was still trading for about $15,000, a little bit less in some cases. So this watch, in some instances, has more than doubled its price just since 2017. The market is at peak Snoopy right now. I do not expect the arrival of the third Snoopy to weigh against the value of the second Snoopy, however. So let's talk about dilution. Let's get granular. Does this new Silver Snoopy 3 bode well or ill for the future of the Snoopy franchise, and it is now a franchise, and the prospects for those who own one or both of the previous iterations? Well, first, I think the 2015 Snoopy is going to remain an investment-grade watch. Like I said, it's rare that something is so scintillating, effervescent, and instantly classic that you know from the moment of release it's going to be an important watch 5, 10, 15 years down the line. But this watch had that quality. I didn't see it becoming a $40,000 watch, but in many instances, that's what it is today. Now let's talk about some short-term downside risk. Is there a possibility that at $40,000 today, that watch could be a $25,000 watch tomorrow? Yes, you better believe it, because that's how peak pricing works. There is always a come down from the peak. There's a trough of sorts. But here's the thing. If that watch is $40,000 today and $25,000 in 18 months, I can see it being a $40,000 watch again, this time durably and projectably into the future from, let's say, 2024 or 2025, which is to say, I think this is the real deal. Now, with only 1,970 pieces of that watch made, it is by far the rarest of the three Snoopies. And that's before we talk about what a 2025 or 30 Snoopy might look like. Remember, every 5 years now, you can bet on seeing an Apollo 13 Silver Snoopy Anniversary Edition. This model, this generation of the watch, ensured that would happen. The new one isn't limited at all. That's something I should mention about the 2020 Silver Snoopy. While it's probably going to be a limited period of production, it will not be a numbered and limited edition like the first watch was or the second watch was. Remember, 5,441 in 2003, 1,970 in 2015. How many of these will be made? I will be shocked if they don't make more than the original 2003 edition, as right now all watchmakers are hurting. This will sell out of the boutique at list price, and that kind of watch is precious and scarce even in the best of times. So I would expect the order books on this to stay open for at least 2 years, with Omega selling every single one that it can move at list price. Subjectively, I would also say that this watch seems like the most original, as the dial is stark and a standout, whether day or night. You know which watch you're looking at. It was imaginative, it was a successful execution, and the most successful execution of the three, partly for the stark newspaper-like comic color code on the dial. I would also say because the engraved and enamel reverse side, this is more tangibly handmade than the new one, which does include silver, but it's laser-etched rather than hand-etched, and hand is always scarcer, more beautiful, and more desirable. And I would also say that this caseback feels less like a gimmick than the new mechanized caseback on the third generation watch. Now the 2003, let's talk about that one because this was almost a forgotten piece, lost amid the endless torrent of Speedmaster special editions and frankly some Seamasters thrown in there. This wasn't a watch that really interested anyone up until about 2015, 2016, because just as Van Halen and its covers of the Kinks led to a Kinks revival during the 1980s. The arrival of the Snoopy 2 led to a revival of interest in the Snoopy 1, and that's why these are now $14,000 watches. Now that's not a ridiculous amount of money for 2003. I mean, I've seen other Speedmaster Special Series selling for 14 grand, so it's not beyond the pale. But I also don't see a ton of upside here. I don't see that becoming a $20,000 watch or a $28,000 watch. I think your money's safe, but it feels like the limit for a watch that doesn't inspire the passion of the second generation Snoopy. So I wouldn't be shocked if in the short term prices cool a bit and this goes back down to about 10 or 11,000. And yes, I suspect that each new Snoopy, and like I said, we will see them every 5 years, will dilute the market a little bit. I think the 2 will always be the holy grail of Snoopy watches. I don't know what the Snoopy 4 will do to prices of the Snoopy 3, but that's something to consider if you're looking at this as an investment rather than just fun money spent on a cool watch. So I would also say this. Right now, the pump has been primed by the arrival of the 2020 Rolex Submariner. People are in a speculative mood, and people who are lucky enough to get on the dealer wait lists for these watches will be flipping them within hours, I'm sure. They will be flipping them for ridiculous amounts of money, and based on the fact that this Snoopy 3 costs almost the same amount as the new Rolex Submariner Kermit, I would expect to see a similar multiplier of roughly 2.5x on pre-owned markets. So expect to see this watch trading somewhere between $20,000 and $25,000 right out of the gate. Could it go to 30? Yes, but I suspect the meat of the market's going to be somewhere between 20 and 25,000, with the prices gradually cooling as we get to 12 months, 18 months, 24 months into the production cycle, which is to say, unless you're on the wait list right now, you're probably going to want to wait a bit unless you want to pay to own the newest and coolest thing. And there will always be those people. If you've got that money, I'm not going to argue against it. I'm just going to tell you the facts. Let's take a look at some of your comments right here. Edward Ledden, I appreciate that support. Right here, we have Abdul saying, I really like the way they make their case backs, but I would have preferred to see a see-through. We've got Mitchell B. greeting us from Philadelphia, hometown boy. We've got Nordic Monkey, good evening from Sweden, just in time to catch the hottest watch of the year. I don't know, there's still that Submariner, but this is definitely in the discussion. It's definitely in the race. There's no question about that right here. We've got Peter J. joining from Germany. Thank you so much for staying up late with us in continental Europe. And then we've got Miguel saying, the colorway of the Snoopy 3 gives me a 2016 CK2998 vibe. And I definitely agree with you. This is almost like a straight 50-50 fusion of the Snoopy 2 and the 2016 blue CK2998. I'm absolutely feeling that. And then Kevin S. is saying, I'd prefer a Daytona over any of the Snoopy watches. Well, Kevin, you're going to want to watch next week's show because we are talking all about the Daytona, where it's been, where it's going, and where I think it should go. Jumping down to the bottom of the chat box, I see Jabo Surf from Adelaide, Australia is joining in. We've got Anastase P. joining from Brazil. Thank you so much for joining me, guys, in the Western Hemisphere. Got to represent. All right, viewer wrist chats. Let's take a look at yours on mine, as I like to say. Jennifer S. of Edinburgh stuns with this panoramic shot from a lofty crag. She's got a Rolex 34 blazing in beautiful, severe light. Good shot. Love the cuff. Cameron T. of Hampton Roads, Virginia, lights up the night with his Omega gray side of the moon. Beautiful shot with a full moon, no less. Nick M. showcases the best Omega Planet Ocean size, in my humble opinion, with his 39.5mm Speedmaster Professional 600-meter diver. We've got Adrian B., who brings watches and wheels to our screen for the first time tonight, with his Moser Heritage and BMW 2002 Driving Club. And because I know you guys love cars, here are the cars. And his is a 2002 TII with fuel injection, the ultimate 2002. Okay, now let's talk about alternatives to the Snoopy. There are a lot of good in-house options if you want to stick with Omega and stick with Moonwatches. And I'm going to talk about those because obviously you could do something crazy like go out and buy a Glasuta Original Da Vinci Tourbillon for the kind of money people are going to be spending on this watch used, but I don't think that's comparable. So let's talk about Omega Moonwatches you can buy if you're not into the Snoopy 3. There's no need to excavate forgotten vintage models or perform contortions seeking obscure surrogates from other brands. Here are current Moonwatches that I like more than the new Snoops, starting with the 2018 announced Moonwatch Apollo 8, the dark side of the moon Apollo 8. I remember seeing this for the first time, and I thought it would either bomb or become sort of counterculture, under-the-radar niche success. In the end, I was wrong on both counts, and this crusty hunk of ceramic and simulated moon rock became Omega's smash hit of 2018, and that's even including the new Seamaster from that year. It is still hot today, thanks to a first-ever combination of a Moonwatch caliber in the ceramic dark side of the moon case. And you can see it right here. As on the dial side, so goes the case back. And you can see that the movement has been laser ablated for a cool moon rock bridge and plate combination with silvered components. I love that two-tone. That's two-tone done right for contrast. It's cool, it's austere, it's dark. It's lovely, it's original, and it's my preference over the Snoopy 3. At 44mm plus, 44 1/4, You would think it's a big watch, but it doesn't wear that way. It's short across the wrist from lug to lug, and all of sapphire and ceramic. It's a very light timepiece. It's also a lot more scratch resistant than any Silver Snoopy, and on that basis alone, it appeals to me. I would also say it's audacious, balancing themed extravagance and tangible luxury in a manner that would make Audemars Piguet proud. Plus, this one costs $9,750, which is comparable to the new Snoopy's $9,600, but these trade at about, well, $9,700 pre-owned, which is to say it's priced fair by Omega. When they price a watch at a rate that reflects pre-owned values, then primary and secondary are in alignment, and the pricing from Omega is true. I would also say that because these watches now have 5-year warranties, even if you bought the oldest Apollo 8 on the market, you're still looking at more warranty remaining than you would get on a new Patek Philippe. Now let's talk about another alternative. This was the Moonwatch in series that made the headlines back in 2019. This is the Apollo 11 50th anniversary watch with moonshine gold and a stainless steel case, and frankly, it was gorgeous. I don't think the pictures do it justice. If we can get a little bit bigger, go full screen, I'll try to describe what I love about this watch. Sure, there was a platinum caliber 321 with an onyx dial last year. Forget that for a moment. The striking Apollo 11 in two-tone with pale moonshine gold was the star of the show last year. The gold looks like a faded vintage 14 karat. It's a very cool look against the smooth slate gray blue of this dial, as well as the ceramic insert of the bezel, which also has gold inlays. It's a really good look, as Omega successfully tackled yellow gold steel two-tone and made it look absolutely stunning, whereas most competitors playing with yellow gold and steel only managed to look dated. This is a superlative Speedmaster Special Series, one of the best ever. You can see at 9 o'clock a figure, likewise laser etched in yellow gold, creates a sharp and detailed dial side that warrants looping just as the best display casebacks do. And it is rare that I will say an Omega dial is worth a loop. Look at the index at 11 o'clock in that shot. You can see that it has been complemented by an Arabic numeral 11. This watch is just dripping with details like that, including the vintage Omega logo and marquee at 12 o'clock. A truly special piece, and the first ever appearance of the caliber 3861 that's in the new Snoopy. Like I said, an amagnetic coaxial master chronometer that's still based on the Lemania base movement, and thus beautiful and historically significant, as this base movement is still the one that flies with NASA today. The dial side is impressive, but the dark side style laser ablation, the footprint on the caseback, means this watch is just as detailed and special on the reverse side as it is on the dial. I will also say that Omega's Apollo 11 included a flat link bracelet that looks the part of a vintage article and adds real value at the purchase price of $9,650. Overall, one could say this is vaguely a reedition of the early Speedmaster Professional 105012, the first of the professional references, and one that did go to the moon. But officially, this is not a 105012 reedition, though again, nod, nod, wink, wink, that is the inspiration. The boxed set. I cannot not mention this boxed set. You get a big box with a lunar surface interior, a lunar lander presentation tray. You get strap tools, you get an extra strap, you get the bracelet, you get all of that. And it's true, $6,969 does not make this a rare watch, but the beauty of this watch is rare objectively. There are not many special editions from all brands combined that are as appealing as this. So on that basis alone, it will be well remembered and a viable collector piece heading forward. Then there's the 2020 Ed White. Yes, I know this is a $14,100 watch, but consider what people are going to be paying for that Snoopy in just a few hours when the first used examples pop up on Chrono. Again, that's why I consider this 2020 release to be a viable alternative to the Snoopy. It's going to, even if you buy it at 14 grand new, probably that's going to be close to half of what people are paying for the Snoopy used in the next week. I'll also say that Omega fans waited for this watch for decades. through the 70s, the 80s, the 90s, the 2000s, and the 2010s, we never thought we would see a re-edition of a pre-moon case with a caliber 321 from Omega with a warranty. And that's exactly what you have right here. Caliber 321, the original pre-moon movement, the movement that actually went to the moon. This is what we've waited for. I predicted for years this would happen. I didn't know it would happen in a full-blown reference 105003 re-edition model, which is what the Ed White really is, as it was his own 105003 that walked in space with him in 1965. So this is a special watch on a bunch of different levels, and it's a watch nerd watch because it's all about the movement, it's all about history, and it's very true to size and form. It's unbeveled, symmetrically cased, 39.7 millimeters, and looks great on a strap, which, by the way, you also get, which is to say it's much like the original. It works well on a bracelet or a strap aesthetically. The more strappy it is, the more utility it looks. True, the photina on the Ed White is unfortunate. That is the one change I would have made here, but the rest is sublime. And by sublime, I mean you can actually see the movement, which is not the case in the Snoopy 3. While production is not limited to a given total, expect production to be limited by price, relative obscurity compared to the Snoopy, Snoopy 3 demand, which is probably going to suck all the oxygen and the dollars out of the room, and the sheer number of budget-priced Moonwatch alternatives. This will always be a rare watch. Let's take a look at what you guys are saying. Edward, I appreciate the support. I really do. Right here, a lot of you guys are saying that the 321 orange hand makes this the exit Speedmaster. That is the last watch in your collection, the exit watch. I would say either the Ed White, if a Speedmaster is going to be your exit watch and it's going to be a modern one, make it the Ed White from this year or the Onyx style platinum piece from last year. That's an exit Speedmaster. And right here I could see Watch Doctor saying, give me the Alaska Project Speedmaster. It's the only comparable Speedmaster to the Snoopy 2. By that, are we talking about the 2008 Alaska 2 or the Alaska 3 that was simultaneously the Speedy Tuesday 1? Because there are a couple of Alaskas. I think you're talking about the white dial, lunar lander subregister, aluminum encased exoskeleton Alaska. I think that's the one you're talking about, but correct me if I'm wrong. I see a comment here, Omega knows how to do boxes. You are not wrong. That is absolutely true, Ed Talks. I got to agree with you on that count. But you guys have watches from me, and I would be remiss not to acknowledge Robert G. Leading off, he presents a breakfast feast. I am hungry, and his watch box bought Omega Railmaster. Thank you so much. I love that blue denim dial. Gerard S. and his Zin 104 tackle the Wicklow Mountains of Ireland out in the field. Dave O. demonstrates the soft luminescence of his Ball Engineer 2 Marvelite. Bud D. shoots a nightclub-like ambient lighting with his Rolex Deep Sea and Lincoln Navigator. That's a very cool shot right there. Atmospheric. Michael C. takes us home with his Patek Philippe 5296G sector dial. Guys, send your wrist shots to Monday Mailbag at thewatchbox.com to see your pieces on my pixels. And join me on Facebook, guys. Talking Time with Tim Mosso. Join the Facebook group. 24 hours a day, people are talking watches. And I would say for at least 16 hours a day, I'm part of the discussion. Thanks so much to you. Thanks to my crew. We've got our new guy in the room, Jack. We've got Sean, longtime tech, and remember, Tim Mosso on Instagram, where the party continues. Social media never stops. Time out, Tim out, and thanks for logging on.